Hi, I'm Judy Tyabji. Thanks for joining us today. I'm still laughing about those guys over there. I know why Hudson didn't watch the Oscars. It had nothing to do with the hockey game. Anyway, thanks for joining us today as we do part 2 in our series on farming in British Columbia. Yesterday we looked at some of the challenges facing farmers. It's under the heading of the environment. We've already talked about aquaculture and the fisheries. We'll get to the other subjects in the coming weeks. But today we're going to focus on farming and on the solutions to some of the challenges in the industry. We're going to be joined by Bob Collins, who is a grower and who's also involved with the Dairymen's Association. And our special guest today is the Minister of Agriculture, Corky Evans. Let's take a look, though, at what you had to say about whether or not you're purchasing BC products.
Does it matter to you where your food is grown?
No.
No?
No.
If you wouldn't pick Canadian produce as opposed to...
I do sometimes, but normally it's the price.
If I can get Washington potatoes at half the price, then unfortunately I won't support our Saanich farmers.
When you buy lettuce, tomatoes, that sort of thing, do you know where it's grown?
California, because we can't afford to buy our own local stuff. It's so high in price.
You won't pay extra for it?
We would do, but if you're on a small income, you can't afford to pay for it.
Do you have any vegetables in there today?
Yes.
Do you know where they're grown?
Didn't look.
If you had a choice between BC grown and, say, U.S. grown produce, which would you pick?
BC,
How come?
because I'm from here.
Yeah.
I buy local stuff if I can.
Why is that important?
Well, why not? People here grow things and they can make a living out of selling them. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, if they're good produce, I'll buy them.
Now, do you buy BC food if you have a choice?
Indeed. I think that's important. We need to keep the farmers going.
They have to compete. And if somebody else can do it cheaper, you know.
That's where you'll go with.
Yeah.
A lot of times you got to have a little competition to keep things on the level. Or gee whiz, they just stick it right to us all the time.
The prices are ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, you heard the news yesterday, the ferry prices are going up, the transit's going up, you know. Wages going up? No. Rent's going up? Definitely.
I look around for all the BC items, I must admit.
Yeah. Well, you pay more for them.
So,
I didn't buy apples because they were U.S.
That's U.S. Nope. American grown.
They were on sale.
It's hard to make a decision like that, isn't it?
Well, when you have 3 boys, you have to buy what you can with what you got.
It kills me.
Yeah.
I like Canadian. Let's look after our own farmers.
So we seem to be asking the question, can we afford BC produce? Can we afford not to be buying it? We're going to start today's show with Bob Collins, you are a producer as well. You have, what, dairy products and some vegetables as well?
Yes, we do, Judy. We have a small dairy herd, and we used to grow quite an amount of vegetables. We grow less and less all the time because we can't make money. And I noticed on the segment some people said, well, the price is too high. And if I can relate to you, just an instance that happened in Port Alberni, where I'm from, I know that onion growers in BC right now are getting 11 cents a pound for their onions. So 3 pounds of onions then would be 33 cents. And those 3 pounds of onions are for sale in the local grocery store for $2.39. Okay. So the amount the farmer's getting often has very, very little to do with the price that's charged in the store.
So what do you see as the future for farming in BC? If there are going to be some solutions, I mean, you're involved in some of the local organizations, and you know, you saw yesterday we had some people involved in those organizations. What are the options?
Well, I think that we had people yesterday, and we have to realize what they were saying, and ultimately the farmers need more money. And the public may not want to hear that, but that's the reality. I've had 5 different farmers in my home this week, and it's tax time. Everyone's done their tax.
Sure.
All 5 of them lost money this past year.
Right.
And their businesses won't survive if they don't make some money.
Yeah, one of the growers yesterday said that 2 years ago, farm income went down 43%, and then it went down 22% the year after. But what about some of the initiatives that we see about sort of co-op retail, where people can purchase into local retail outlets? So at least the farmers are getting more than just a small fraction of what you pay.
Well, most farmers do belong to some kind of a cooperative marketing scheme. They belong to something like Dairyland, which is a cooperative, or the Vegetable Marketing Commission. Unfortunately, they have to compete at the store level with produce that's grown in Mexico or in the U.S., where there are business climates and labor climates much different than our own, right, where there are, in fact, farm climates much different than our own. We have an agricultural land reserve that's preserving land, in my case, about 55 acres of farmland, which is a small amount. It's good land, but it's not big enough to be competitive with somebody farming 10,000 acres in the Columbia Basin in Washington.
Right. But when you say that, when we're looking at some of the solutions that are in front of us, and you say there needs to be more money getting to the farmer, that may be because people will be purchasing more BC products. Are there any other ways that we can?
Well, I think ultimately that's it. Whether or not farming survives in BC is in the hand of the BC consumers. They will have to decide whether they will support the products, look for them in the store, and be constant and vigilant in searching them out, and if necessary, paying a few cents more for them.
Right.
And that way, a user pay viable agriculture. Nothing will preserve farming more than business viability.
I wonder about the quality of BC products. I know that we have the greenest pesticide legislation. We should be very proud of that. What people may not realize is when you go and look at the vegetable counter, if you're buying BC products, they're a lot better for you in terms of they're local, so they have a higher nutritional value and they have fewer pesticides used. Is that something that that you can market as growers? We can tell people. Ultimately, as you saw in the clip, a lot of people make the choice strictly by price. And there might very well be BC products that can go in the store as cheaply as that, but because of the pricing in store, they don't come out as competitive. If we don't buy BC products and all the farmers go out of business, then what happens? Well, farmers are ready to hit the wall. And ultimately, as I said, the public has to make the choice to support them by buying the food or support them by telling the government that they do want the farmers to remain and they're going to have to subsidize them with tax dollars, or come to the conclusion that the whole thing is redundant and it's time to scrap farming. Don't worry about it. Scrap the ALR and let the farmers get on with whatever other lives they're What kind of jobs would be out there, though? I mean, I often wonder if we aren't then going to transfer the cost instead of paying a little more at the grocery store, if we aren't going to end up paying it through social services or through job training or through something else.
Well, I don't know. It's certainly true that a lot of farmers are getting older. I mentioned I had 5 in my home, and there's only one person there under the age of 45 who's likely to be a farmer in 20 years, and he's probably in the toughest shape. He doesn't see how he's going to be here next year. Okay, well, I'm sure the minister will have some news for us. We're going to take a quick break. We've been speaking with Bob Collins, who is also a producer of agricultural products in BC. Back after a quick break with the Minister of Agriculture, Corky Evans, and your calls.
Tyabji is brought to you in part by CFAX 1070, Victoria's news authority.
I update my account balance online. Transfer money online. I review my transactions online. I live offline.
It's been 2 weeks. What do you mean? I mean every day for 2 weeks. Every day? Every day. And it's good? It's very good. 2 weeks, huh? Oh, yeah. What does your wife think? She thinks it's great. You should try it. Oh, I'm gonna try it. Good.
They're talking about Kellogg's All Brand. It's very high in fiber. Make it part of your complete breakfast for 2 weeks and see how you feel about it.
How do you feel about it? Good. You feel good? I knew that I would.
Kellogg's All Brand. Try it for 2 weeks. Love it forever.
This year we decided not to do our taxes.
We're never going to do our taxes again.
We were paying way too much tax. Our situation was getting far too complicated, and we decided that we had better things to do.
We just said, forget it.
And that's when we decided to, get out of the country for a little while.
Tires Unlimited, where we treat you royally. You see, with more staff than other shops, Tires Unlimited gives you the quickest service in the city. It's quite simply an exemplary performance center. All work is, of course, guaranteed. We stock the largest range of BF Goodrich passenger and light truck tires on the island and purchase direct from suppliers, passing the savings on to you. Fresh BF Goodrich TA tires and fast service. Tires Unlimited. We treat you royally.
Many farmers say that the agricultural industry is in crisis and that they need some solutions in the short term so that we even have an agricultural industry in BC. It's getting tough to compete in the global market, especially especially with some of the environmental labor laws that we have in BC. We're joined today by BC Agriculture Minister Corky Evans. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to share with people a little bit of the history of the Agricultural Land Reserve so that for some people, you know, who've never heard of it, we can talk about this. First of all, it was in 1951 that the BC government did an inventory of the land in BC and showed that there were 2.25 million acres of agricultural land, which is roughly 8% of the province. Due to the rapidly rising population and unavailability of further land, the government accepted that all crop-producing land must be protected. In 1973, the NDP government realized that development was eating up farmland, so they brought in the Agricultural Land Reserve. The idea was to protect both the land and the farmers. And there were other programs to make sure that farmers would be better off economically. Gives people a bit of a background. So we're looking at like 40 years of trying to protect the farmland. There's competition. Everyone we saw in the streeters, people say, well, you've got to compete. We've got a global economy. We've got NAFTA. We've got the free trade agreement. We've got GATT. Why are we always trying to compete on other people's terms in terms of they've got lower environmental standards, lower labor standards. We've got such great regulations and legislation here, but the farmers are caught in the middle. Why is it like a race to the bottom?
Well, Bob put it best. You know, I mean, he answered you straight up. The folks out there will decide whether there'll be agriculture or not. If we don't care about quality, then we're going to do it the same way they do in Chile, or we won't grow anything at all. If folks are willing to just, as you say, engage in the race to the bottom and buy the cheapest product instead of talking about what are they actually feeding their family, then we lose.
But maybe they don't know. I mean, a lot of people, I bet you if you did another streeter and said, did you know that we have better pesticide legislation here and our food is better than they might not know.
I think to the extent that they don't know, maybe that's the agriculture's fault or my fault or the press's fault. I think we've done a lousy job of telling the story. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you're setting out to reverse that. Yeah. The truth is, the agricultural products we produce in BC are better for you than just about anywhere in the world. I just came from Japan. You know what the Minister of Agriculture in Japan said to me? He said, tell me about this organic business. You guys are getting good at it and we have to learn. The world knows more about British Columbia's skill in growing food than we do.
Okay. And I want to get onto organic. Just very quickly, we're going to go to the phone lines in a sec, but the growers yesterday wanted me to ask you, how is it that in BC, where we have this agricultural land reserve, which a lot of people look to in other jurisdictions as a model, there's really no comprehensive policy for agricultural production? I'm not talking about agri-food and I'm not talking about, you know, tourism, but agricultural production.
It's a good question, and it needs to be answered. David Zernheld, when he was minister, started to create a post-GATT policy. I know you're short of time, but yeah. The world changed the rules. They said, okay, now there'll be free trade. Mulroney signed a free trade agreement. Kretchen signed the NAFTA agreement. They went out somewhere and did this thing called GATT that says food can go anywhere. Mm-hmm. We need a policy for this new world. Capitalism has changed the rules. We can't protect the borders, and we need a policy that reflects the times. Absolutely correct, and you and me and all these folks in the agriculture community are going to have to work it out over the next few years. Okay, well, let's just go to the lines. We start with Gail in Vancouver. Hi, Gail.
Hi. I find this a really interesting topic because my husband and I used to go down and pick up the California produce, and they just, when you go down there, you can't breathe for the pesticide residues that are in the air. Right. And the way the reason it's so cheap, and Canadians have to realize this, is that they're paying their workers such substandard wages. A lot of these people are living in paper boxes. They're migrant farm workers, and I mean, in conscience, I can't buy it. And when I go to the store, everything's dominated by imported produce. You have to really look hard to find a BC product.
You do. That's an excellent comment. And just so you know, for anyone watching, go talk to your produce manager if you don't see BC products, because I do. All the produce managers know me in the store, and I say, where's the BC products?
Good for you.
Well, it's a little thing. You come from the Okanagan, you buy BC stuff. Otherwise, because you're
I think with 100,000 people like you, we could maybe change the way Safeway looks at the world. But I just want to say to the caller how much I appreciate her sentiment. A lot of people don't know the horticultural community in British Columbia, for example. They've figured out how to grow tomatoes in greenhouses without pesticide, and they're selling them into California because she's so right, because the California consumer wants an alternative to the
pesticides and the labor things. But and I have to go back to the phone lines. I have all kinds of questions for you, Corky. Okay, we now are talking to Marie in Delta. Is that right?
Yes.
Hi, go ahead.
Yes, I find it very ironical that the government has put the land into the agriculture reserve, and at the same time they've taken away the programs that ensured that the farmer would exist on the farmland.
Right.
And I do live on a farm, and our attitude is protect the farmer, they'll protect the farmland. So
That's very good.
At this particular time, as Corky is aware, the government has been downsizing in the agricultural ministry, and some of our best people have been early retirement, laid off, that type of thing. Corky, you mentioned organic farming. The best man to tell us about organic farming has been let go. What kind of support is this for the farming community?
Okay, thank you, Marie.
Wonderful question, and the honest answer is it's lousy support. The government of BC has laid off something like 3,000 FTEs, and 60 of them came from my own ministry.
Full-time employees gone.
Yeah, real people in real offices doing real work for people like her.
Well, you know, I remember that in the 1991 election where you guys first went to government, there was a lot of commitments to farmers. Farm income insurance was subsequently canceled. That wasn't you as minister. I think it was Bill Barlee was the minister at the time. A lot of the programs that were brought in by the NDP in '73 to go with the ALR are gone. I mean, are there going to be things to replace that? Is there going to be some pressure?
Sure, and I think that I would hope that the caller and other farmers, Bob, would acknowledge that within the context of the fiscal crisis out there, British Columbia isn't doing a bad job, this ministry isn't doing a bad job of delivering service. But it isn't going to be like the old days. Like, no one can swallow $1 billion a year in reduced transfer payments and make more out of less. Less happens to be less.
Okay, I know we're going to go to a quick break, but just quickly before we go to a break then, why don't you then make the regulations a little easier? For example, farm labor contracts, that doesn't cost anything, to make it a little easier for them to employ transient workers, for example.
You're right. Any place where the regulatory regime can be relaxed without engaging in the kind of practices that California engages in.
Well, fair enough, yeah.
Is a good idea, and it's my job, and if you got some good ideas, say them on TV, say them to me personally, and I'll go try and make them work. But we're not going to attempt to compete with the kind of activities that go on in Nogales or in Chile, because...
Okay, that's fair enough. We have to take a quick break, but you heard it from the minister. He said if we've got some good ideas about regulatory changes, let's write to him. Send me a copy of your letter. Back after a quick break with your questions.
Tyabji is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, Victoria and Duncan.
Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna make a sentimental journey to renew old memories. All aboard. Got my bag, got my reservation.
Sour cream and onion, or more barbecue bacon?
Yes!
You may see a stranger, a crowded room, and somehow...
Oh, Miss Piggy, I nuzzle your neck. I nibble your hand. I eat your crisps.
Good night. The low-fat new flavors of Baked Lay's Potato Crisps. With just 1.6 grams of fat per serving, bet you can't eat just one.
This Subaru Outback is pretty impressive.
Not wrong there.
It gets better gas mileage than a Cherokee, holds a turn tighter than a Blazer.
Don't forget acceleration.
Acceleration?
That's right. Goes 0 to 60 faster than an Explorer.
Competition must be worried.
Oh, yeah. They're scared stiff. Subaru Outback, the world's first sport utility wagon.
Okay, I know you're a department store. Now show me what makes you different.
Show me! Seen all these brands together anywhere else?
You have a point.
Seen a store that has all this, all under one roof?
You have another point.
What about a store that services everything they sell?
That makes a difference.
And actually lets you earn Sears Club points towards almost anything in the store.
I think I need a closer look. In person.
We're talking to Minister of Agriculture, Corky Evans. We're going straight to the lines. We'll try to get to as many of you as possible. We'll start with Kathleen in Surrey. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment that I try to buy BC as often as I can, and recently I'm finding that when I go into Safeway and Save On Foods, which is where I normally shop, and I ask where the produce is from, a lot of times they can't even tell me.
Yeah.
I know recently in Safeway they had to go into the back and spent a good 15 minutes looking through crates to try and find the name on the crates.
Well, good for you that you were asking.
Well, the other interesting part was when they said to me, "Why are you so concerned?" And I said, "Well, I have 2 small children, and I prefer BC products because we have more controls on the pesticides." They made the comment to me that, well, BC has the strictest controls in the world about letting produce into our country, and that we don't buy produce from countries that use heavy pesticides. And considering that we're bringing a lot of produce in from Chile right now, I'd like to know how, with the reduced staff and government, they're making sure that those Chilean farmers are not using heavy pesticides on the produce.
Thanks, Kathleen. Actually, that's the federal government that do the border checks, isn't it? That stuff just comes right through. They're not really testing very
It's the
much.
federal government that's supposed to do the border checks. I have no comment on how often that
You're just being
happens.
politically correct. I'll tell you what, they're not doing it. That's what's happening. They're just not. Come on, tell them.
Let me just say to the caller, you know what? Even your government isn't so good at this. I went to the CNIB kiosk yesterday at the legislature, bought an apple, went up to my office and bit into an apple from Washington.
Didn't you talk to them?
I was in my office before I got.
Agriculture.
I'm pretty sure they'll see it on TV.
You're fired. Okay, line 3. We got Laren from Surrey. Hi.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
It's your turn.
Okay. I recognize that the farmers also need infrastructure support. A couple of years ago here in Surrey, I sat on the Surrey Futures, which was coming up with an official community plan. The farmers came with information. They were loaded for bear. They showed where in 1975, when we had a heavy rain, it was 4 days before the floodwater showed up on the fen in the lower areas. Nowadays, it is 4 hours. And it's mostly because of the number of developments, the storm sewers, the water just rushes down there, and they grow what are called salad crops. They produce over 10% of the agricultural income of the province because it is such a high markup crop. And they need the support. The developers essentially paid for a council to get elected, and they got the rules that they wanted, and the farmers are just getting bulldozed by them.
Is any of that report in the Surrey Futures report that was put out?
I was actually on the final committee, which helped to write the final report, and they got edited out before the final report.
Okay, well, thanks for the call. Any comment?
I just want to say that the caller is so bang on. You know, most politicians don't understand what that guy understands. A great amount of the real production and profitable production in the province is in the Fraser Delta, and there's people building towns all around them, and the towns tend not to have a historical perspective of agriculture, which is why we put in the Freedom to Farm legislation. But we got to work together. Either the municipalities, regional districts, and the province are rowing in one direction, or the boat won't go.
Okay, let's talk now to Eleanor on Minstrel Island, a very beautiful part of the province. Hi, Eleanor.
Hi, Judy. My question is, why is organic produce so hard to get in the grocery stores, especially from BC? When I ask for it, the store manager will say, well, there's not enough demand for it, and there's not a guaranteed supply for it. But I am willing to pay a lot more for certified organic BC produce.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to travel so far. It doesn't have to come all the way from California or somewhere else. It would be in much better condition. I think our government should put forth a support program like they do for the forestry, now for the fisheries, and I'd like to see it for our small farmers. It's growing by leaps and bounds.
Okay,
the demand for
let's cut you off there,
food.
Eleanor. Okay, that's good. Okay, Agriculture Renewal BC.
Well, the caller wants to be able to find organic food. British Columbia is the first province in Canada that developed a certification program. We're trying to get the rest of the country to agree, so there's a Canada-wide certification program.
Yeah.
Then we'll have large enough amount of food that distributors will actually use it. Right now, you know what happens? You grow organic. I'm trying to talk fast enough to keep you happy. Right now, if you grow organic products, about half the time it's shipped south to Washington, the state of Washington, to mix in with American products, and then back into Canada because we don't have enough food in the aggregate to service the distribution system. So yes, it's growing, and yes, we're trying to help.
Okay, we have to very quickly. Lori from Victoria, can you be quick?
Hi.
Hi.
I have a quick question. I was just saying quick. If us as BC residents purchased more of our own products, would that make the price go down?
Oh, good question.
Frankly, I hope not. I want people to purchase their own products so people like Bob can farm it all. Folks, the world is changing. Either we defend these people at the straight price that you find in the store, either we defend these people or we can't have agriculture. And I would hope that the caller wouldn't purchase BC in order to get it cheaper. I hope she would purchase BC in order to have good, healthy food and a good province.
Okay, just very quickly, yes or no. Will you amend the ALR Act to provide guaranteed access to water for farmers?
You are the very first person to ask me that question. Anybody who makes up public policy on television is a damn fool, and the answer would be maybe.
Maybe. Oh, very political. Okay, I have to let you know that tomorrow on the Rafe Mayer Show on CKNW, they're talking about the new BC budget, which is coming out in about an hour, which you can see on your legislative channel. BC Finance Minister Andrew Petter and Liberal leader Gordon Campbell. Apparently, he does do radio talk shows anyway. Back after a quick break with my opinion.
It's in a whole lot of things you wouldn't expect. And some you would.
It's been 2 weeks.
What do you mean?
I mean every day for 2 weeks.
Every day?
Every day.
And it's good?
It's very good.
2 weeks, huh?
Oh, yeah.
What does your wife think?
She thinks it's great. You should try it.
Oh, I'm gonna try it.
Good.
They're talking about Kellogg's All Brand. It's very high in fiber. Make it part of your complete breakfast for 2 weeks and see how you feel about it.
How do you feel about it? Good.
You feel good.
I knew that I would.
Kellogg's All Brand. Try it for 2 weeks. Love it forever.
For a limited time, your Chevrolet and GMC dealers will unleash the power of the Kodiak. We took a rugged half-ton pickup, fully outfitted it with the powerful Vortec engine and special gift package of free Kodiak boots, and called it the limited edition Kodiak. Now's the time to catch one. Kodiak trucks start at $18,988 or lease from as low as $250 per month with 0 down. Track one down at your BC Chevy and GMC dealers before it's too late.
Victoria, British Columbia doesn't close down after the summer sun sets. In fact, Victoria is even more enjoyable now during our secret season. Just call the Canadian Pacific's Empress Hotel and we'll tell you how to save 60% on your room at the Empress. Plus, we'll treat you to the Butchart Gardens, a romantic carriage ride, or Empress afternoon tea free. We have a lot of other little secrets to offer, but you'll have to call to find out more about Victoria's secret season at the Empress.
In about 1 hour, Finance Minister Andrew Petter will be bringing out the next provincial budget. That's the budget that covers 1997 to 1998. What is going to be in it and how much is it going to cost us? We're going to be talking about this on tomorrow's show, and I hope you'll join us. We also expect the Minister of Finance to be with us sometime next week, so you'll have to stay tuned. I want to start today by saying thank you to all of you who phoned me yesterday and today about the shows we're doing on farming, and we will come back to this subject. I know that many of you think that we've just scratched the surface, but it's pretty obvious that in this...
Hurting innocent people.
He said it could possibly happen.
On the 2nd anniversary